AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. And welcome everybody to our weekly show where we answer gun questions that come into the website. And we got Clover joining us from Texas. Thanks for jumping in.
Good to be here.
And Tony jumping in from New Jersey. Thanks for joining.
Yay, glad to be here.
And I'm down in Arizona, and we are eventually going to open up the spreadsheet here. Here we go. So, how you guys been? Having a good week?
Yeah, I'm having a good week. I was actually going to run to the range today, but the time got kind of late, and I really didn't want to rush, through my range visit. So I'll probably hit that tomorrow. And tomorrow we're also scheduling some of the kids' shoots with CNJFO. We're actually going to have a meetup at a cigar lounge and go over the schedule. So I think that's a pretty cool change. We usually don't do that.
I was able to get by the gun shop this week, which was interesting. They had gotten in a lot of things on some consignment. They do a lot of estate consignment type stuff, and particularly air guns was interesting. They had quite a few really cool air guns.
Oh, really? Like some of the big ones?
Old school and like some competition level stuff. This person apparently was at the very least interested in shooting competitive air gun, I guess. I mean, pistol and rifle.
Yeah, I know. When I first, started reading and watching videos on it, I'm like, where did these things come from? Because my competitive air rifle was the single shot pellet rifles we shot in school. And, being a kid, you just used the equipment they gave you. You didn't know how much it cost.
Yeah.
Well, now they have things like the Day State and FX, and these things cost like $1,500, $2,000.
Yeah. These were old school. I mean, don't get me wrong. They were from, I'm putting them in the probably 70s or 80s, but I mean, and some of them were higher end commercial stuff, and then some of them were mid range, mid tier, and high end, like competitive stuff. So
what about the price? I mean, because they were used guns, obviously, if they're from the 70s, right?
Some of them were down. I mean, they were asking $50, $60 as a little of that for some of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
dude,
the most expensive one I think was like $600 or something. So anywhere in between, just depending on what it was.
Yeah, dude. I mean, truthfully, it's one of the things I like doing. I mean, I've said it before. Shooting small groups, doing the whole breathing, focusing. It's just fun. And with an air gun that's really accurate out to 10 meters, you can put out groups that, can be covered by a pencil eraser.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's actually was the size of the bullseye in the competition, and we'd have overlapping shots on that puppy. I mean, but that's just the old days when the eyes were good.
Right.
As a teenager.
Well, I'm sitting here eating some soup, but as you guys were talking about that, what makes the gun is just the barrel being straight and being able to have some kind of sights along the barrel that give you reliability, I guess, or consistency, whatever the word is there.
Also a trigger.
Something with
also a trigger that doesn't move the whole gun when you pull it, because the trigger pull isn't, the weight of the gun itself.
Yeah, when you get down to where you're trying to not tear a hole in that, like you're putting them all through the same hole and you're just trying not to tear the hole. So yeah, a lot of things messing with you.
Oh, it is. I mean, for me, it was a lot of fun because you had the shooting jacket, you had the whole, accoutrement that you used. And it was just the fundamentals of it. I thought was a lot of fun, and you get to hang out with other kids, especially at the high school level that we were at. I have no idea if they still have it, but I think it's a great thing for kids to do, mainly because it's a sport. You still have the team aspect, but you still have the individual performance aspect. I think it's pretty cool.
We got started off with Clover riffing off, or us riffing off of Clover's gun shop experience. Feel free to ask questions out there. We do this live because we value the interactive nature of this whole thing. We're having a conversation with everybody. If you're listening in the future, you're part of it too. Just leave comments out there. Sometimes I even put this up on the podcast thing, so give us some feedback there if it's worthwhile or not. We do often use the visual stuff here. We're not turning our cameras on as much, but we are using the screen share to sometimes look at stuff or make a point or something. But if that isn't too frustrating for podcasters, let us know, and we can put more of them over on the podcast platforms. So with that being said, we have a question from February 21st that came in, and it asks, when learning to shoot, should you use irons or red dots? So that's learning, not teaching. So how would you answer this one?
When learning to shoot,
it's kind of open, so we're not, at least I'm thinking of this, and I don't know if they
Irons.
mean handguns or rifles, but
Either way, irons.
either way, yeah. When learning to shoot, that means you want to learn marksmanship, right?
Right.
It's not learning to shoot a defensive handgun. It's just learning the act of shooting. Irons is a good base, and foundation to build upon. But if you just want to learn how, to shoot a gun, this is what I do in the diversity shoots, and you just want somebody to hit a target and have positive feedback and a positive experience, yeah, red dots are really easy. But if you want to learn the skill and even, I guess I could say, the art of marksmanship, fundamentals, then it's irons.
I agree.
you guys are just talking about BB guns and stuff, air rifles a second ago. We're not saying that somebody has to go buy a gun specifically with irons that can't handle a red dot in order to learn how to use a gun or to get marksmanship.
Well, there's always the issue of like visually impaired, or there's certain circumstances where that can't be a thing, right? And then for for some of the people we know that are visually impaired, neither, right? Apply for them. So
Yeah, I mean, and again, there's a difference between the two. I think it's enjoyable if that's something you're into. If it's not, it's not.
Well, there's also different types of irons, right? In the same way, there's different types of optics, and so learning the different types of irons and how they work and proper sight alignment with them and windage and elevation and holds and all of that, just the art of shooting sports, right? Like Tony said, I mean, it all goes into the fundamentals. If you want to learn fundamentals, if you just want to get out on the range and pop steel and practice some self-defense stuff, and you always plan on having the red dot, then that's a whole different situation, I think.
Or learning to shoot and you never plan on going to shoot again, right? Then who cares what you're learning? So I think I'm thinking of a lot with cars, stick shift and auto. Like, do you learn on stick shift because it's harder and because that teaches you more? Or do you just get in an automatic and learn how to drive? Because what's more important, learning how to operate the vehicle or learning how to operate the vehicle in traffic? Well, there's no answer to that because they're both super critical, right? You got to be able to do both. You can't operate in public until you're able to operate. And you can't operate until you've operated in public. So it's a yin yang. So there are both now. If anyone says one or the other doesn't exist, don't listen to them. There are both, and jump in. So when learning to shoot, should you use irons or red dots? I mean, if you went to a rental range and you're renting and they say which one, then honestly, the only answer is which one are you going to rent first? Because you're going to rent one and then you're going to go back and return it and rent the other. If your friends are taking you out, say, hey, let me shoot it with, and then let me shoot something without. I don't think you should do one or the other. I think that's probably the answer, right? Like, don't think you can just learn one or the other. Just start learning them both right away. I don't know.
There's no reason to limit yourself. I mean, and everybody's not on board the red dot optic wagon. So if you go visit someone else, do something else, having that they don't have irons, having the ability to shoot with irons accurately, it's a good thing, especially if you're boring
Yeah.
somebody else's firearm.
Well, the way that's worded and the use of the word learn, right?
Hmm.
To me, it's like that person is interested. They want to pursue things and
Keep
learn
going. Yeah,
and
not
learn
just
more,
Hmm.
right?
yeah,
And
Yeah.
not to
so with
experience it. They want to learn it.
if you want to learn a bunch of stuff, you have to start with a solid foundation.
Yep.
And iron sights are that foundation.
I mean, I think you do. I don't. I'm not. I'm disagreeing. I guess as I was gonna say, I'm not disagreeing, but I kind of am because honestly, like I say, it doesn't matter. You're gonna learn both. You're gonna hobble yourself if you don't learn iron sights and learn what these guys are talking about with real marksmanship because you can't do that with a red dot. You can try, but a red dot is going to wash over and be too big at whatever you're shooting at distance, unless you buy a super expensive red dot, and then it's still going to be blur out and be too big at distance. Iron sight, there's a reason for hundreds of years because it works for hundreds of years. The one thing that's been consistent through everything is the trigger, the rifling, and the sights. Until just recently. So there's a reason that they've endured over the years because they work really well. It
Yeah.
just
My last competition, a rifle competition that I shot in, I was using the M16A4 clone with iron sights because the target was at 100. No red dot is gonna, because it's I think maybe it's a 4-inch circle in the B8, a B8 target. I think it's about 4 inches. The black is about 4 inches. That's smaller than what the dot is.
And that's why in precision competitions and even marksmen of years and years past, right, go to the rear aperture and front globe is because you don't cover your target. You center
Hmm.
everything in the circle with circles at that point.
Yep,
And
circle in a circle.
yep, and you've got full view of your actual target. So you can see, not only can you see your target, but you can see if you're paying attention. And this is mostly at, what am I thinking? 15 meter, 25-yard stuff.
Hmm.
Precision rimfire. If you're honed in, if you're in the zone, if you focused with those globes and apertures, you can literally see the round punch the paper, which really helps, right? In following up on the next bullseye and the next bullseye, because maybe I pulled it a little bit, or maybe my sights are off a little bit, and so you're able to tell that. Or if you have to break position, right, to see that shot, it's like, okay, did I screw up or not? Because now I've broke position, so
Hmm.
I don't
And now
know.
you gotta now you gotta build it
Yep.
back,
Right.
and and it's not gonna go to the same spot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so this is what I'm talking about. Like the conversation here with Tony is learning, right? They said to learn, and it's like you can nerd out on all kinds of stuff if you want to.
well, and Magnum just made a comment about revolvers, and you guys are sitting here talking about it. So I think your answers are iron sights. I'm saying just pick up. Like if it's your friend, if somebody who's asking this is got a friend that shoots what are those things called, bowling pins with red dots, then yeah, grab one of their guns and learn red dots right away. But
Mhm.
realize that if you want to learn, like these guys are saying, you don't have any fun until you start to actually learn to use the thing. So if you picked up a guitar and just strummed it, are you playing guitar? I mean, yes, I guess technically you're playing guitar. But if you learn how to use your other hand and make it make noise the way you want it to, or at least
Right.
make different noises sometimes, then you're having a lot more fun with it. So it's that kind of thing. You can definitely get into guns and have a lot of fun and never use iron sights, but you're missing out. And yeah, if you ever really want to do more with it, then I was just going to say like a revolver. It's just you're going to be hard found. It's going to be difficult to find a revolver that has a red dot on it, or that you're gonna be able to even put one on, right? So
Yeah.
you're almost leaving yourself out of those. Shotguns, same thing, unless it's some kind of defense thing, I guess maybe, because you really don't use red dots for hunting even still. So they're
Right.
so great, but I don't see anybody putting them on bird guns. Saying, "Oh, red dots are so awesome. They're so good for moving targets." Where's any of them on who hunts with them? You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're neat when you want to sell red dots, but they're not necessary. Anyhow, so I'm going to say start with either one you want, but yeah, you're going to learn both and more. I mean, there's optics. Don't forget optics. That can really be a passion for people who kind of what these guys are talking about, but even out at even greater distance or greater accuracy. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, so next, I guess
we're gonna address magnums, or we start and catch it later.
I didn't even read. I just saw the revolver. I'll click on it. I've been shooting a very long time. Revolvers are my favorite gun, but I can never master the very heavy trigger of a revolver. Anyone else have that problem?
Some
You're talking
revolvers?
double action revolvers, I guess, because single action is the opposite. They can be some of the lightest triggers out there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it depends on the revolver, right? I mean, some like unless you take it to a competent gunsmith and have a trigger job done to it, and even then, there's only so much you can do with some revolvers.
Yeah, or else you're gonna have failure to freaking go off.
Right. Yeah. You have to have that balance of the heavy mainspring, right? In order for the primer to go off.
Yeah, not get light primer strikes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You practice with a revolver a lot. Dry fire a lot. Get yourself some snap caps if you're worried about the gun. And just dry fire a lot.
Well,
and you got to pick that up. You got to learn how to either roll through or stage. There's two different schools of thought, in my opinion.
Yep.
And if it's a brand new pistol, one, give it time to break. I mean, revolver. You want to give it time to break in before you spend the money. But if you want to spend the money, go ahead and get the trigger job done. But I think one of the things, in my opinion, is you just have to get used to that double action trigger pull yourself. I think mechanically they are what they are. But the 686 I have was already a used gun when I picked it up. And because my gunsmith, not my gunsmith, well, my FFL is a gunsmith, and he knew what I was going to use it for, the diversity shoots. He was like, hey, I'll take this in and I'll bring it back to you, because it was in Pennsylvania. So he was an FFL in both states, and he just took it to Jersey to where his shop is and did the trigger job for me. And I picked it up, and it was just super stupid smooth compared to what it was in the gun shop. The initial time he had me drive to PA and check it out. So that's my opinion. You have to get used to it. But the cool part is once you learn to shoot a double action revolver, no trigger's a challenge.
This is true. I tend to come down into the staging on the staging side of things. But that said, there are some revolvers that's just not. It's not possible. The triggers are so horrible. You know what I mean? If you did a trigger job on them or was able to do something like that, then maybe you could, right? And in that case, the pull through, is the only way you're going to be able to do it. And then you just have to, practice. But even then, you're only going to be so accurate with it. My tip for staging, definitely dry fire, definitely snap caps. All of that helps because you're going to build up finger muscle. You're going to do a lot of things. But practice your staging, right, in your dry fire. Like if you're going to pull through, that's one thing, right? But knowing the art and being familiar with how to stage and the muscle memory and mechanics of that is super important because you're going to be able to tell as you're pulling that trigger back. Whatever revolver you pick up, a couple of trigger pulls, and you've kind of got that staging area figured out. There was another point I think I was going to make on that. The staging is it comes down to a lot of times, and I see this is proper, and this is a telltale sign. I know people that they say they have trouble with double action revolvers. And it's because they've got a fundamental flaw in the placement of their finger on the trigger, and that is caused by modern single action firearms, whatever type.
Just
trigger,
say 9
right?
millimeter. It's
There you go. But it's caused by nicer triggers than obviously a double action trigger. You got too many things going on, and there's a reason it's heavy. But people are spoiled, right? Whether it be that the nice trigger on the hunting rifle or the competition rig or the 1911 or whatever it might be, right? And so they don't learn that proper placement of the pad of your finger on that trigger does make a difference because it has to do with I don't want to say the linear force, right? But especially if you're talking a curved trigger. That's what I kind of like about flat triggers is flat trigger, and you don't see flat triggers on revolvers. I don't think I've ever seen one, but anyway,
No, because of what you're talking about, though.
Yeah.
Double action trigger means it's doing two actions.
Yeah.
It's doing stuff.
Yeah, but a curved that curved trigger, you've got momentum that can be going against itself, if that makes any sense, because you've got that curve. So if your finger's too high or your finger's too low, you know, you're trying to actuate that and you're pulling back, but the curve of the trigger, your finger may be going up or down at the same time a little bit, and there's just a lot of things going on with that double action, right? So proper trigger placement, finger placement on the trigger. Pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's when a lot of the modern shooting method doesn't take that into account for revolvers, because they've fallen out of favor for over the last 30 years as a daily carry, as classes are being taught. Not many people teach a revolver class.
Right.
And it's not just pick it up and shoot it. It's just the same as a semi-auto, because it's not. You're going to have to learn the nuances of it to be good at it.
Yeah. And it's just like we talked about with the previous thing, right? Like, you know, those that you don't have to even know revolvers or know how to shoot double. I mean, there's so many options out there nowadays and everything else, but it's a learning thing. I mean, you want the experience and the know-how, and you do want to learn it, or you do, you know, eventually want to, you know, thinking you want to carry for whatever reason you've come to. Then, yeah, I mean, dive into it and start playing around with it.
Oh, and everything is not single action just because you have a hammer. I mean, you should really learn to fire at double action.
True. Yeah, because you never know. I mean, if you've got to get a quick one off, right? Like if you're target shooting on the range, that's a much different situation than self defense for sure. So, you know, or even a hunting situation. Usually, you're going to be in a stand or in a blind or something. And I mean, the single action is. I mean, yeah, take advantage of that single action anytime you get an opportunity. One of the things I've seen over the years, and it's that's interesting. I know we're talking about triggers. This is another thing that, you know, I don't know where you come down, Tony or G, but with revolvers, with, you know, single action, double action, hammer fired, or not hammer fired, but I'm not talking about hammeredless or shrouded hammers, right? Like full hammer spur, is you'll see somebody that gets one for the first time and they're used to semi-auto, and they pick it up and go thumbs forward. and it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're planning on shooting in double action all the time, like maybe, but I like the thumb over because on revolvers, and it's natural for me to go that route with a revolver. The grip angle, like everything else on a revolver, just kind of falls into place with me. And I almost naturally go to that thumb over. I don't know where everybody else comes down that way. I've got that single action, quickly have that single action in a pinch if I need it.
Yeah, that's how I started off. I mean, yeah, one of the first, I didn't shoot semi-automatic pistols until I think I joined the Corps. So yeah, I started off with revolvers. That's what everybody had around me. I mean, you're talking 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Semi-autos weren't ubiquitous in pretty much anybody's collection of firearms, semi-automatic handguns.
Right.
At least not where I lived. So my first revolver was a black powder 1858 clone, Remington New Army clone. And I just picked it up, you know, the thumbs, like you said, curled, and that's how you shoot it, because that's how it's comfortable to shoot. I mean, it almost is, that's called ergonomics, right? You just pick it up and your hand falls in the right spot and you shoot it like that. So that's how I learned. And I feel lucky because I had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, with semi-auto, most times you've got a slide that's articulating, and so you don't want your thumb back there, right? But then you've got the opposite can happen. I've seen some very iffy things that's like, cylinder blast is a thing with a revolver. And if you're pushing forward with that offhand or whatever, right, and you're getting up close to that cylinder, the front of that cylinder, that's not going to be good either. So that's why I go thumb over it. It kind of moves my hand back a little bit, keeps everything away from that cylinder. I've been cylinder burned, and it ain't fun.
I haven't, thank goodness. Again, started off with black powder, moved to a 357, And then every now and again, I get to shoot someone's 500 Magnum. That is not where you want your finger, even though
I
you
had
have to have the longest fingers ever to get into the cylinder gap of a 500
Yeah.
Magnum.
Well, you don't have to get in there. It's just getting close, right? I like mine. The instance I had, and it was just a moment of not paying attention, and that's why it's very important to pay attention, right? I had a camera up. I think I've got the video even on it, but I had the camera up, and I was shooting 357, and I was doing it from a rest. And for whatever reason, it was setting on the rest, and I put my other hand up on the rest. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
And so I was maybe 3 inches or so away from the cylinder, and it brought blood, and I had to pick unburnt gunpowder. Like it peppered my hand basically, right, with unburnt gunpowder, and of course hot gases.
Mhm.
There's lead getting shaved off there too, probably.
And it could, but I had to pick stuff out of my skin. It wasn't fatal or anything, but it definitely burned me, and I had to pick stuff out of my skin, which wasn't fun.
No, thank goodness you told us it wasn't fatal. I was worried about that.
Well, like I
It
said,
learns you
obviously it wasn't fatal.
It learns you the lesson, though. And you have to do that once usually.
I'll pay more attention now. Yeah.
Oh, heck
And,
yeah.
you know, yeah, totally.
So shooting a revolver after shooting like a class or something, that's the worst time. Like after you've been shooting the fingers forward or whatever you call it, just shooting it the way you would shoot a revolver. Shooting a pistol, because shooting a pistol, you do shoot differently than a revolver. And after a while, like Tony says, you just get used to like curling your knuckles and making like a weird fist when you shoot a revolver.
Well, let's be honest here. Let's be blatantly honest. Revolvers and handguns, pistols, flintlock, whatever it might be in general, were and have for the vast majority of the time been designed to only be shot with one hand.
Yep.
So the whole two-hand thing is very, very new in the lineage of handguns anyway.
Probably what, 60? Maybe 60 years? Because you can still see the black and white FBI training and police training videos.
Yeah,
the two-handed shooting there's literally an origin to that, and that's when Cooper was still doing the leather shoots in California, and what's his face started bringing two hands together in one, and everybody went, oh, now we're bringing our hands together too, and then
triangle or whatever,
isosceles, yeah. Nice.
That's all documented.
So that was
the part about it is all
late 70s, early 80s.
No, 50s,
early 70s, late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But yeah,
long time ago. Yeah, like right before we were born.
But yeah, you look at old Army training manuals with the 1911. You go back into whatever. You start reading about dueling and all this stuff back in the 1700s. All one-handed. Like nobody. It's crazy. Like nobody thought to put another hand. I mean, I'm sure somebody did it throughout history. You know what I mean? It just nobody did it to an extent where it gained any type of recognition or exposure. Maybe it's just this is the way we've always shot them, and so this is the way we shoot them. It's kind of like now, right? Like how many people outside of maybe competition shoots one-handed now?
Well, it literally goes from. And it goes like this. So there was no training or anything. There was dueling manuals and dueling laws and stuff. So you could learn the laws of dueling, and you could learn how to duel better if you didn't want to die in a duel. But dueling was a thing up until a certain time. And during those times, that was a single shot, black powder percussion, some kind of matchlock percussion, flintlock type of thing. Those could blow up in your face. So you had no interest in having that thing anywhere near you. Yeah. And they had all the time in the world. All they did is fiddle with these things. So if you've ever had an opportunity to hold an old giant flintlock revolver, whatever you call it, a Derringer pistol, whatever I guess you call it a pistol, technically, there's a reason they're the size they are. You need that length of barrel for accuracy because of what it is, and also because of that's a design to fit at the end of a human arm, and not
get
for
it away
children,
from you.
Adults. Yeah. But it fits with your articulature. It holds into your thumb bone or muscle or whatever it is, and it pulls on your arm muscles. It's very natural. It's very easy to hold it extended like that. So they literally had all the time in the world. They were making axes. Why do you think axe handles look like they do? Because they had nothing to do for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years while they were axes and stuff. No, they figured out
that's why they're not straight.
Our body works with an axe, right? Shovels and everything have a shape because of that. And guns are the same way. So then you go from that to revolvers, essentially, and those are black powder and the same thing, blow up in your face. You don't want them anywhere near you. So you're holding them away from your face as far as possible because most people aren't training. There's no training in guns. You buy a gun and you shoot it at people, right? You think it's magic. Some people are probably a little better because they're paying attention. But most people just pick up a gun and think it's magic, like a flashlight or like a candle or something. Like, I'm going to turn it on and it's going to light the room. I'm going to point the gun. It's going to shoot the bad guy. They don't realize there's no awareness of like marksmanship or anything yet, for the most part. So anyway, yeah, then you get to, the more modern revolvers and stuff. They were literally, like you're saying, well, that's what they used to do. So we're going to keep doing it. And then it wasn't until literally the 50s or whatever, the 60s there, where they started putting two hands together and realizing that in competition, it is a little bit faster. When you start to put the analytics on it and start watching and paying attention, it is faster to do it this way. And it's from then on, boom, it goes in fast forward. And guns and technology and use and technique all become merged from that point on. And then you start to see guns designed to do things instead of guns just existing. Anyway, so there's literally a reason for that. It's because these are face, and then it wasn't until people decided, oh, you put your hands together, you shoot better, that we started putting two hands on a gun.
Depending on what it is, and that's where I was going to break in here and just say something that I've learned anyway over the years, and I'm still not super proficient with an old school, single action army revolver, right, with a big front blade, receiver cut sights or whatever, gutter sights in the back.
It's got to be embarrassing for a Texan, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I'll tell you, the issue. I know what the issue is. I shoot it better one-handed than I do two-handed. And so what it is, that's a testament.
I never put two hands on a revolver. Most revolvers, I hardly ever hold a revolver.
Yeah. Like an old single action revolver. And again, we're not talking about modern sights. So like if you're talking about a Ruger Blackhawk, for example, it's got modern sights. So not really an issue. But a Ruger Vaquero, for example, is the old school, single action army style sights. And so I shoot those much better one-handed. Well, why? Well, because of the way you're holding it. When you're holding it out and you're holding it one-handed, right? Like those sights are further away from you. They're, the angle at which you're holding the grip, if you're doing it one-handed, is slightly different than two-handed. You're going to grip that revolver a little higher one-handed. And so, well, I guess what I'm saying is if you're like me and you struggle with single action revolvers, try one-handed and see what happens. I bet you it makes a difference.
Well, that's a good point. If somebody's picking up an old gun, like a new gun, they are going to be fighting physics or whatever that is.
Yeah. People want to talk about grip angle all the time, right? Like, you don't get much more traffic. And I've got an old, what is that? An Iber Johnson or an H&R or something. And it's got what they call a target grip on it. And holy Jesus, if you Tony knows what I'm talking about. You talk about a weird grip angle. It almost curves back under the revolver. Like it's crazy.
Well, do you have any Beasleys?
Yeah, the Beasley grip.
I don't, but yes, I
bought one of them because I was like, oh, this looks different. I'm buying this gun because it looks different. And then I shot it about 4 times, and I'm like, I'd like to return this horrible gun. He's like, I thought you were.
All right.
I wonder if I still have a single action.
Yeah, I enjoy my single action. I competed with it. I mean, the first time I took it out of the box, I was reading directions at the competition. So I don't recommend that, by the way. Yeah, there was no Disney movie moment where I won the competition, but I did not embarrass myself because, again, another B8 target at 50 yards with a handgun I'd never shot before, all in the black.
Oh, and by the way, since we're talking single action revolvers, fanning the hammer is a movie thing unless you've got a specially worked on revolver. You will tear your hand up, just saying.
Yeah, that's not something worth one getting into.
Right.
You just know.
But that happens when people are think about single action revolvers, right? They think fast draw, they think about fanning the hammer, that sort of thing. And it's like, that'll eat you up if you ain't careful. You got to have the right revolver for that.
There's a lot that goes into that. I mean, truthfully, I don't know if people know this. Even the trigger width is different on a target revolver than a regular revolver.
It's also shifted. Yeah.
So it's all, there's nuance to it all. The deeper you get down that rabbit hole, the more things change. So there's nothing new about having adjustable triggers. There's nothing new about having wide trigger shoes or different. Already been done with different firearms, and I'm sure before revolvers it was done with flintlocks.
Uh-huh.
Because men love to compete. Mankind loves to compete, and they love to get better with something by adding mechanical things to it.
Yep.
500 Magnum says in the chat here, I've been shooting a very long time. Oh, wait. So then Ozzy was asking, how do I find who the DC project rep is for Illinois? I was wondering if she's going to the IGOLD, is the Illinois Gun Owners Legislation Day.
List on the website, been there?
Yeah. She's Dr. Lori Blackwell, and we've got her link there. And I imagine she's going only because it says she's been with the DC project since the beginning. So I'm sure she's aware of what's going on in Illinois if she's been there for that many years. She's in up north in Illinois, so it might be a challenge. So remember, these ladies are doing this stuff on their own dime and on their own time. So if you want to support something and you're frustrated at supporting the national level organizations that see everything as the hammer or the nail that they're the hammer to, or the screw that they're the screwdriver to, or you want to fund more than just hammers and screwdrivers, ladies that go to the legislature and what do they call that? Schedule meetings and then meet with them to let them know about their feelings about gun control laws and options to that, which are education and awareness, which leads to the lack of accidents, and then changing addressing the mitigating causes of violence, which are often other things than the things that are picked up and the tools that are used. They're really changing the playing field. They're changing the arguments and the tactics that the other side is able to use, and they're having a lot of effect. So this is a question about the representative for the state of Illinois, but each state has a DC project representative. We put the link in here. We'll put it in again. Feel free to check it out. And if you have any questions, you can find them on all the social platforms. But certainly money well spent if you want to support ladies that are spending their own money to change the way that things are done. So thanks for the question, Ozzy. I'm assuming she'll go, but I guess mansplaining. I don't know. Do we miss any other questions? I know Clover's got to get out of here on a timely basis today.
I didn't see anything out there in the chat. Anything else?
Okay, so then I'm going to go back to the questions, and the question was going to be, what magazine fits my Ruger Rancher in 7.62 by 39? So this is the Ruger Rancher, I guess, a bolt-action 7.62 by 39 rifle with a polymer stock and trigger guard. I think it's an integrated trigger guard, it looks like. You guys looked at this at all? It looks to me like a Mini 14 magazine, but I don't know. You guys know anything about it?
Actually, I don't.
I'd like one. If Ruger wants to send me one, I'll take it and look at it. Whatever. I like the idea of a 7.62 by 39 rifle, bolt action. But this one looks a little bit on the inexpensive side. But I don't know what the price is on them or what. But all these magazines don't look Soviet at all. They don't look like they rock in. They look like they insert into a well. So I'm thinking like.
I think that the newer models use. I think the newer models use AR style magazines.
Yep, they are.
But I don't. But I don't. That being 7.62, I don't know for.
And they just don't look like an AR mag. There's not that many pictures of them, but they have a little bit of curve, so they don't look like an AR mag. Well, this one looks like an AK mag. Well, if it uses a real AK mag, then I'll shut up and I'll want one even more than I did a minute ago.
No, I don't think it uses AK mags. Nope, it uses AR type 7.62 by 39 mags.
Okay.
I think there's conversions that you can do with an AR with an AK mag. I think they make a weird floor plate or something.
Oh, I'm probably not allowed to say what that one might be, but
wait a minute.
That one might be
dang it. Hold on, let me keep looking. All right, here we go.
Snob says Mini 30 mag.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Yep, Mini 30 mags. I just found it over in Midway, USA.
So Mini 30 mags, if you were to buy something that would be approximately the cost of a mini 30 Magnum. But that cost of that other thing be that would not be a violation of any kind of thing to talk about. Let's see.
Hold on.
Hold
on. There have been complaints online. AK pattern. I think I just stumbled across where they have a conversion for it. Yeah, to AK knives.
Yeah, that would be neat. So, in other words, a drop in or something.
Yeah, I just found it on the Firearms blog, converting Ruger American Ranch rifles to accept AK mags. About 10 months ago, this article came out.
Well, then that would be an interesting thing. So the question is, what magazine fits your Ruger? Then I would say it looks like the Mini 14 plus question mark, whatever you decide to do with that rifle.
Yeah, the Mini 30 mags, yeah. For the 7.62 about 39, yeah, Mini 30s.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm saying Mini 14. That would be a 5,
yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never had one. I've only played with them and never had any ambition to get one. So mix them up sometimes. Should we do this last one?
Sure.
5 minutes. I'm looking to purchase a fire. This is the last one, so this is a good opportunity for people to ask questions over there. We got plenty that we skip over from I guess I can move over and see the actual dates that are from the end of last year in December. We just got carried away with getting ready for SHOT probably, but in fact, I'll leave this one just so that we don't kill off the new ones, jinx anything. What is gunning calculations? That's an interesting question. Gunning calculations. I don't know if that's a specific thing, so I'm going to go see if it's something I don't know about specifically. No, it's just what we think. It's just a weird way of saying what we think it is.
Gunning calculations.
Well, I'm assuming ballistic calculations or
Okay.
That kind of thing. Like if they're talking about the math that you would do for shooting long distance. So you're talking the calculations that you use to project or,
I wonder if that's
figure out the projection or the trajectory of your projectile over distance.
I wonder if that's a language barrier question or just not sure how to ask it. Yeah.
I think it's a language just because it's backwards and weird, but it's like both weird words and backwards. So I think that's all it is.
It's a little bit of physics, a little bit of algebra, right? A lot of physics actually, and a lot of algebra, but essentially that's what you're talking about. You're talking about all the variables that come into play, right, for the flight of the projectile once it's ignited and once the cartridge is ignited and it's pushing it down the barrel. But even the ignition itself and the pressure created, comes into play too. So a lot of different variables with that. Weight and shape of the projectile, how fast the powder burns, or slow, for that matter. How much of that powder there is, how much the projectile is going to twist, right? Then you've got your distance, you've got your, you've got Coriolis effect. If you're very, very long distance, the curvature of the earth can come into play. Barometric pressures come into play, temperatures come into play. Obviously, wind comes into play. So when you're talking about, your ballistics and things like that, it's hard to narrow it down because there's so many different variables that.
Well, that answers the question. That's answering the question. What is it? It involves all of the stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. That's all of that's involved.
And it can be fun. There are people that really dive in and dig in, especially reloaders, get really, really big into that. And it can be fun because
nothing changes. You're taking a projectile and you're throwing it downrange at a thing, and the variables are like all the things Clover talked about, right? So you figure if there's this overall equation, it's gonna have is a very few number of those variables if you want, or you can have as many of them as you want into this equation. And some people have a very simple one, shooting there, I'm going to zero, and that's it. So you think about your zero. It's about your only calculation you have to come up with. It's essentially adjusting your scope, your optic crosshair, so that at a 200-yard distance, you're hitting where you're aiming, and that's your 200-yard zero. So that's like your basic. But then everything Clover talked about, you change the powder. Well, now technically you could write an equation down literally on a graph paper or on a piece of paper. You could write an equation, the graph or whatever you call it. You could write it all down and say with this gunpowder, and now you change the gunpowder, and now you copy and erase some things and change some variables, and now you say, okay, I suspect my zero is going to be here with this gunpowder, and now you use a third gunpowder and you do all the variables and you go, okay, now I suspect my zero is going to be here, and maybe you want it here, there, or the other place, or maybe you wish your zero was just pushed out a little bit further. What can I do? I can't change the barrel very easily, but I can change the projectile. I can change this. So the calculations of gunning allow you to get as infinitely intricate for accuracy or consistency or whatever it is you might be interested in. And that's one of the things about shooting that's hard to describe, is that almost no one is shooting for violence. Almost no one is even shooting for hunting. Most people are just shooting to master the math or the physical or the understand all the variables, or just get deeper into it and essentially just try to do what we were talking about at the beginning: shoot a hole and then shoot the next bullet into that same hole.
Yep. Which is easy, because all you have to do is align the sights, pull the trigger without disturbing the sight picture, and that's where it goes. And you only have to do that every single time.
So easy. Yeah. Just don't do all the other stuff wrong and you're fine.
But it is a lot of variables involved, and I think that was a great explanation, Clover. Actually, both of you. I have nothing to add to that.
All right. Well, we are getting.
Well, I will add that it also deals with what happens on the receiving end. So ballistics is a part of that. So, like, what does that projectile do once it hits a target, right? So that comes into play more with hunting and self-defense and issues like that. But you're talking expansion and weight retention, and you get even more variables on that end of the equation.
Mag 500 Magnum saying, these moon clips seem like a good idea. How can I carry them without them getting bent all over? How do I get without getting bent if used in a speed loader for his revolver? They make little, I don't know what to call, a little basket, little thing made out of leather that you put speed loaders in, or moon clips in, I guess. But I guess technically, if you fell over on it, you'd probably smash them, because it's just leather and a piece of little tinfoil or whatever holding them together.
Also, you can use the strips, not the strips, the what do you call them? Moon clips that aren't all 6 or 7 or 8 rounds. It's 2 rounds or 3 rounds, and that will give you less material to bend and more options. If one is bent, you can just go to the next one. But yeah, that's some of the things you can do. And of course, you can go to strips also, which are meant to sit flat in your pocket. So there are ways to reload a revolver, but the full moon clip is one of the more easily bent or easily damaged. But the moon clips that break it down into 2s and 3s, they're easier and less easily damaged because it's a smaller overall area.
Yeah, that's a great point. I wonder if you can just take a regular one and cut it. I don't think there's any reason to not just cut it.
I don't think it's that much more complicated to just cut it down.
Yeah, it's not like there's a spring or something. So, but they might be expensive. And, if the moon clips are necessary, if it's head spacing off the moon clip, then I don't think there's any problem there either. I haven't seen them in 2s, but I've definitely seen them in like half, like whatever.
Yeah, I think it was half.
That's the best idea. Yeah. I don't know, Clover, you ever use moon clips? Use a fight, so you might not.
Yeah, I mean, I've never carried or anything with, anything like that with moon clips. But yeah, they make just like they make speed loader little holders and stuff. There's holders out there for clips and strips and all kinds of things.
They might even make them in Kydex, give it a little bit more durability or whatever. If you're sitting down in chairs and stuff, we have to worry about getting smashed and stuff.
Well, I've seen them used in shooting competitions, as Jerry Mickler has.
Yep.
Oh, not like speed loaders, but literally. Oh yeah, because sometimes they'll use moon clips because then you can eject everything at once, and it doesn't. You don't have to worry about anything being left behind. Your moon clip pulls
Yep.
everything out, right? Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
that's probably a good, interesting idea of like just keeping them together because then you do have. I mean, you have to shoot your whole thing off, which is lame in a real encounter. Um, but in real life, you're not necessarily going to be like, let me examine my cylinder and see which ones of my rounds I've actually shot by examining the primers, and then just reload the chambers that are, you know what I mean? You're just going to slam them all out of there and reload. But yeah, I think there's probably something you said for full moon clips. Do they make single moon clips? I've never seen such a thing. They probably can make anything though. I mean, that's essentially an E clip, so you can probably just go to the store and get an E clip.
Yeah, right. Oh, you're talking like if you're using something that's rimless, around
That's
is
what
rimless.
I imagine. Yeah, like on a one of those cylinders where the headspace is off the moon, but I haven't. It might not actually be strong enough. I'm not sure. But let's wrap it up. Clover's got to get out here at the top of the hour, and we've never. This is unprecedented. This will be a less than 1 hour. Thank you. Art through $10. I got my monetization back. You want to check out the GunTuber Academy? I don't know how many times you need to be recommended to go to a place to make your channel better. GunTuber Academy. Gotta check it out. And thanks for the super chat there. But let's wrap it up. If you've got questions, you can ask them. I would recommend asking them over at the website, askgunquestions.com. We'll drop a link to it here in a second. But Clover, what do you got coming up? And
good question. I've got who do I got this week? Hootie Hoo and Bursa, a podcast this week, and on Thursday. That's Wednesdays and Thursdays, by the way. And on Thursday of this week, I've got. I will be on a podcast. I'm not real sure if it's the Noggin Notes podcast or if it's the WTTA podcast, but either way, I'll be on with Jake, Mike, and Jake from WTTA.
Oh, really? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Oh.
All I know is they asked me if I wanted to come on the podcast. So I don't know.
Pretty cool.
They're hard up for guests. I'm assuming if they ask me that, so I will oblige. That's why not? They're friends, and definitely I support what they are doing and have been since their inception. So why not? That's pretty much it. Other than that,
what about on the GunTuber Academy? What's happening over there?
I don't know. I'm sure we'll talk about something Tuesday, but I haven't done a lot there. Just I'm sort of under the gun, metaphorically speaking, I guess. Not literal. I'm under the gun on a lot of different things that I've got to get done on the Clover Tech channel, and there's been some weirdness going on with that over the last few weeks that I've been trying to have to deal with, and it's a little bit on the stressful side, even though I'm trying not to stress too much, but that definitely limits my time with additional projects outside of the main channel for now. So other than Tuesdays with UG and talking nerdy stuff there, not a whole lot going on there. I will warn against anybody out there that is a creator, and it doesn't matter in what niche or genre, but it's hacking. Channels getting hacked are a really, really big deal. There's been an uptick in that over the last few months. I've had to help 3 creators get their channels back in the last, 2 or 3 weeks. Talking about GunTuber creators, 3 just in our little world. So it is happening. So mind those passwords, everything else. Be careful what you click on in emails, so forth and so on, because that sort of stuff is happening. But just know that, there is recourse. YouTube is super, super helpful if that indeed happens to you. They do have, even if the people go in and delete all your videos or whatever, like YouTube, nothing goes away on YouTube. They can get it back. So I get the stress if that happens, like it's the end of the world, and what do you do? But just reach out, and we'll try to get it handled, try to get it taken care of. Oh, biggest thing is if you see that happening, make sure that you take notes. What day, what time, something weird happened. Make sure you take screenshots, different things, and that can help expedite getting your channel back if it gets hacked. Public service announcement there.
Nice.
Oh, I just realized my mic was up in the air the whole time. Sorry about that. That's over then. Tony, what you got coming up?
On March 16th, I have the next diversity shoot. The first diversity shoot of the year at Gunfire Range in Woodland Park. Ticket sales are up. What was that?
You're still doing those things?
Yeah. Ticket sales are up. A little delay this year because of the trips I was taking and everything else. Usually we kick it off in February. But it's going to be on March 16th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tickets are up. If you go to my social medias, which is Simon Says Train on Instagram. The Second for Everyone on Facebook, and Second for Everyone on Twitter. You can just click on the link and purchase your tickets today, or go to Eventbrite, because that's where you're going to purchase your tickets at, and just follow me there. And that way you will get an email immediately upon me posting the tickets. And the Second is for Everyone podcast. I'll be looking for a guest to put on an interview and close this episode out. So episode 97 will be dropping shortly on your favorite podcast app. And that's it.
Right on. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us each Saturday to answer questions. And they're kind of random questions. Everybody can ask them. It's been up there since like 2007 or whenever it was. So askgunquestions.com. Feel free to ask them anytime or leave comments in the videos. So we'll be back next week at this time. Like Clover said, he and I will be on Tuesdays to chat about content creation. Now, Tony and Clover got a chat coming up on your interview series. When is that? I already seen it in the books.
The one with Tony and I?
Yeah.
22nd of this month.
Okay.
Okay.
So that will be coming up. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And yeah, I'll quit saying thanks. GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. We need to get